Thanks all for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. My name is Natasha. I'm the Special Populations Coordinator. So all those alternate pathways, I kind of help support those programs. That's the DREAM Act, the alternate pathway, and there also our TAP for Incarcerated Students program. I'm joined in this training with my awesome colleague, Jeffrey Joseph. He's our training manager here, and he hosts amazing trainings like this all the time. So hopefully we can answer all your questions today. Don't be afraid to throw them in the chat as we're going along. And at the end, we'll also answer any questions you have as well. So welcome to our seminar. We're going to go over alternate pathways, including the DREAM Act, our new alternate pathway, and we're going to look at their respective TAP applications today. Okay, I think we can move through. So we're going to go over the agenda firstly to give everyone an overview of what you're going to be hearing about today. So first, we're going to start with an overview of the DREAM Act and our new alternate eligibility pathway for students from mixed status families. We're going to talk about the pre-screening questions that are there. We'll tell you about that when we get to it. We're going to review the DREAM Act eligibility application in depth with screenshots so you can actually see what students are seeing. That's going to be really helpful to you. Same thing for our alternate pathway. We're going to show you screenshots of what the student sees when they're submitting that application. And then last but not least, we're going to show you the TAP application for those programs. It's slightly different than the TAP application for FAFSA TAP students. So let's get started. Let's look over some different situations that students may be in. And this is going to kind of give us a good intro into the training. So we're going to see different situations, and you can kind of brainstorm about where you think these students would apply. Which application would they use? The DREAM Act, the FAFSA TAP route, or the new alternate eligibility pathway? Let's get started. Okay, scenario one. Jared moved to New York 3 years ago from California. He attended high school for 3 years at Xavier in Brooklyn. Both of his parents are U.S. citizens, and they both live and work in Brooklyn. So based on this, like, what would you think that Jared should fill out? Yeah, you can tell us in the chat, and you don't have to. And we're going to go over these later as well and see if, you know, our information today helps you be better informed. Next, scenario two. Have Brittany is a New York resident who was born and raised here. Her parents recently decided to move to North Carolina to care for an elderly parent after Brittany graduated from high school. Both her parents are U.S. citizens, though. So which application would Brittany fill out? Okay, we're going to look into that a little bit as well today. Next, scenario three, Rocco was born and raised in New York. He graduated from high school a few years ago and decided to work for a few years to figure out what he really wanted to do with life. During that time, he got married, and then he's deciding to go back to school now to get a degree in elementary education. He is a U.S. citizen, but his spouse is not. So which application would Rocco fill out? And don't worry, we're going to give you the answers to these later as well, guys. Scenario four, Petro arrived in New York last year. He's a Ukrainian citizen who has to leave home due to the war. He has temporary protected status and a work authorization. Which application would Petro fill out? All right, guys. So now we're going to look into the 3 pathways, and I'm going to pass it over to Jeff to give us a little intro.
So we're going to talk about the 3 pathways. So those scenarios were just to get you thinking about how to help students. And I'm sure you guys are getting questions from students right now about, man, what do I do? I don't know which pathway is right for me. What's safe, what's not safe. So we have some options for you. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of those options, and then we're going to really dive deep into the DREAM Act and alternate eligibility pathways. So the first of our 3 pathways is the FAFSA TAP pathway. That's for FAFSA filers. And then we have the DREAM Act pathway, which most of you may know about already. And then the new alternate eligibility pathway. Those are 3 distinct pathways to the same funnel of funds, which is TAP and our New York State grants and scholarships to this through these programs. I'm gonna answer that question quick, Patricia. Yes, so this is being recorded, and this will be put on our FAFSA Ready training webpage after this recording, and we'll give you more information on that towards the end of the training. Also, if you have any other questions, guys, we love the questions. Throw them in the Q&A panel. So open that Q&A panel right next to chat. throw them in there, because then we get to kind of keep a list of those questions and then use that to kind of feed our site and help other students that may have the same questions go to our site and get those answers. All right, great question. It will be available, as well as the PowerPoint will be available on our website. There is a version on there now you can grab, but it may not be the most updated version. This updated version will be on there shortly by the end of the week. Okay, great question, Patricia. So going forward, let's talk about the FAFSA TAP pathway. This is for those students who are legal New York State residents, right? So they live here, they are U.S. citizens, they live in New York City or New York State. They complete the traditional FAFSA application. They go through and then they complete the TAP application through our HES website or through the link that populates after the FAFSA. This is the pathway that really maximizes the amount of financial aid students can get, right? So we have a lot of students that may be thinking about other options. If students are able to do this pathway, it is the one that provides the most aid that they can possibly get, or the most opportunity for aid that they can possibly get. The next option is the Dream Act pathway, which we'll talk about a little bit more in depth in a little bit, but these are for those legal New York State residents, which includes some other citizenship statuses that we'll talk about in a little bit. This is especially for students who cannot fill the FAFSA out, right? So those some students that, due to the citizenship requirements, cannot fill out the FAFSA. This pathway opens an opportunity for those students to receive New York State aid. And it also opens up the opportunity for students who are not legal residents of New York, right? And there's a certain set of students that aren't legal residents because of certain situations that we'll talk about today, that will be able to apply for the pathway, apply for eligibility, and then hopefully get some aid, okay? And then the last pathway is the alternate eligibility application pathway. So this one is for, once again, those students who may meet the citizenship requirements for FAFSA, but have other concerns for family members that cause question as to whether they want to fill that out or not. This opens up the opportunity for those students to apply for New York State aid. Okay. So which application is right? That's the question a lot of students ask. I'm sure a lot of students ask you, which one should I fill out? We have now pre-screening path determination questions or statements that help students understand which application is best for them. So by a quick yes or no, so put a Y or N in the chat if you've ever helped a student with the Dream Act application. If you've ever helped a student with the Dream Act application, put a Y in the chat. There you go. I see a lot of yeses. Dana, thank you. Pamela, all right. Yes. Who else we got? Brittany, thank you. Who else? Who's helped a student with the Dream Act application and seen that system? Okay. Excellent. Great. So if you haven't seen it, or if you have, there's a new window that's going to populate for you guys. So when they choose to add a new application, and we'll talk about a little bit more about how to get to this place in a little bit, this will populate whether they when they first sign in to add an application. It provides 3 options for students to choose from. The first option is that I'm eligible to apply for aid under the Jose Peralta Dream Act. So students that you believe are Dream Act eligible should look at the website to make sure they're eligible for that based on their criteria, and then select that option. The next option is I'm a New York State resident and can apply for FAFSA, but opted out due to privacy concerns for family members. Students that choose this option will go down the alternate pathway. So it's a Dream Act pathway and then the alternate eligibility pathway. The third statement is for students who are New York State residents and are willing to complete the FAFSA using family members' information. Primarily for students who there are U.S. citizens or eligible non-citizens, and their parents or contributors or spouse is also a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. For those students, they can be directed to the FAFSA, because once again, we have alternate pathways, but the one through the FAFSA is the one that provides the most opportunity for students to actually get the most aid possible. Now, there is a caveat with the alternate eligibility application. But before I move on, I want to see how we feeling about the predetermination, the path determination questionnaire. Give me a thumbs up if you think it's all right. If you get a little bit, give me this if you're like, okay, I got a thumbs up in the chat. I got a couple thumbs up. Oh, I got a lot of them. Watch out. Popping like crazy. All right, excellent. So that's new. There is a guide. So we do have a path determination guide available on our FAFSA Ready training site right now that will once again go through these steps a little bit more. And that's something you can print out and provide to students that are having issues and want to bring it home and talk to their families about it. Now, when it comes to grant and scholarship eligibility, there is a caveat to the alternate pathway, alternate eligibility pathway. So students that apply for the DREAM Act are eligible for TAP, STEM, Excelsior, Enhanced Tuition Award, and all the other grants and scholarships that are available, right? They can apply for those. Now, students that apply through the alternate eligibility pathway are eligible for TAP, STEM, and some other grants and scholarships, but they're not eligible for Excelsior and the Enhanced Tuition Award. The reason why that is because the way that the Excelsior law was written when it was put into place is that those that are eligible to file a FAFSA must file a FAFSA to be eligible for Excelsior. So DREAM Act students are not eligible to file a FAFSA, therefore they retain their eligibility for Excelsior and ETA. Alternate eligibility pathway students are eligible for FAFSA and are choosing not to, therefore they're not eligible for Excelsior. Now, there's a whole bunch of questions that you might get from students. So I'm kind of feeling froggy today. What are some questions that you might get from students about this particular statement that they may not be eligible for Excelsior through the alternate eligibility pathway? I'll tell you one. What if I change my mind? Has a student ever said that to you before? What if I change my mind? What if I don't know? Right. So we do have frequently asked questions on our FAFSA Ready training page right now. But the general gist I'll give you is that students that are maybe currently getting Excelsior and now choose to do the alternate eligibility application pathway and then forego their Excelsior eligibility can come back and get it as long as they keep their continuously enrolled and they're still getting 30 credits per semester. So they can come back to Excelsior the next year. If they say, you know what, I really need Excelsior. I didn't know it was gonna be this difficult. I couldn't get the funding. They can come back the following year, apply for FAFSA, apply for TAP, and then apply for Excelsior. And they will still be eligible as long as they kept that 30 credits per year and they stay continuously enrolled in college. I'm sure the other questions that you might see pop up, feel free to put them in the Q&A panel. We'll love to answer them for you. And now I'm going to hand it over to Natasha to talk about the DREAM Act pathway.
Hey everyone, let's get into the DREAM Act application a little more in depth. Okay, the first thing we're going to review is who's eligible for the DREAM Act. What is the DREAM Act? All right, so the DREAM Act pathway, quick overview again. This is a pathway for students who don't meet the citizenship criteria or the New York State residency requirements for the FAFSA TAP pathway. So this is, we'll go through that a little bit more. However, just wanted to let you know that this is not only for students who are undocumented. This is for undocumented students, DACA recipients, TPS holders, and lots of other immigration statuses. But sometimes citizens or FAFSA eligible non-citizens also apply for the DREAM Act, and we're going to look into that throughout this presentation. Okay, so account registration. So how do you start applying for the DREAM Act? So you're going to go to our website, hes.ny.gov/dream. It's going to say apply today. You click apply today, and it's going to take you to this external website. You'll see a screenshot right here, and you can either log in if the student has an account or they register and create an account. Registration is really easy. All the student has to provide is their email address, their create a password, and their date of birth. So really simple. It's not a huge registration like when you're creating a FAFSA account. Okay, now let's look into the eligibility a little bit more. So as I said, there's lots of citizenship and immigration statuses which fall into the DREAM Act. So citizenship is step 1 of DREAM Act. So if students have one of the following statuses, they may be eligible. So if they have a T visa or U visa, if they have temporary protected status known as TPS, if they have DACA, they may be eligible. If they're without lawful immigration status, they may be eligible. Another word you may hear is students may say, I'm undocumented, I don't have papers. These are all synonymous terms that people use. And finally, last but not least, like I said, FAFSA eligible people can apply for DREAM Act as well in certain circumstances. So that would be US citizens or eligible non-citizens whose permanent home is outside of New York State. And a quick example of students who you may see who fall into this category is like the examples we reviewed earlier with Jeff. So that would be, let's say I went to high school in New York State my whole life and I lived in New York State. When I graduated high school, maybe my parents wanted to move back to our home country. Maybe they wanted to immigrate back, right? In that case, if I'm a dependent on them, technically my home address is going to be outside of New York State. So I wouldn't qualify for a TAP normally because you have to be a New York State resident. However, the DREAM Act recognizes that these students spent their whole education and their whole lives in New York State, and they may still be eligible for a TAP through the DREAM Act. So this was eligibility step 1, citizenship immigration. They have to meet one more requirement, which is step 2 to getting the DREAM Act. So the next set of eligibility requirements is the educational background. So that would be the students can be one of the following to be eligible for DREAM Act. So firstly, they can have gone to New York State High School for 2 academic years and graduated from New York State High School. Or they can have a high school equivalency diploma, which is really great because sometimes students come here in their senior year of high school, and that's not enough time to qualify for DREAM Act because you need 2 academic years. But to get a high school equivalency diploma, you only need to be in New York State for 30 days. So this is not the best pathway for everyone, but it is another pathway that may be best for some of your students and something to keep in mind. And last but not least, if you don't meet either of those 2 requirements, there's one more way students can be eligible for DREAM Act. That is to be charged in-state tuition at a SUNY or CUNY college for a reason other than residency. Now that one's a little bit complicated because most of the time, if someone's being charged in-state tuition, it's because they're residents, right? So that reason other than residency kind of trips people up. However, let's say I'm applying for the DREAM Act because I'm a DACA recipient, like that's my eligibility for step 1. For step 2, if I'm choosing my eligibility as I'm being charged in-state tuition, in the application, if you're choosing at being charged in-state tuition at SUNY or CUNY college, to verify that, we have students upload a copy of their tuition bill. So all I have to do is upload my bill that shows I'm receiving in-state tuition, and then that will get you approved for DREAM Act. So that's another pathway that we do see some students use to attain funding. So of course, students who go to private universities would not be able to participate in this 3rd eligibility criteria because private universities do not have in-state tuition. Let us know if you have any questions about that. And then last but not least, there's one more thing to keep in mind for DREAM Act eligibility. For the students who graduate from a New York State high school, or for the students who have a high school equivalency diploma, there's one little more thing to keep in mind. So students who are applying for the DREAM Act must apply to college or to the DREAM Act program within 5 years of earning their high school equivalency diploma or their high school diploma if they're trying to get undergraduate awards, or 10 years if they're doing graduate awards. So there is a bit of a time limit for those students. All right, guys, so that's DREAM Act eligibility. If anyone has questions about that, reach out to us. We are flexible and we always try and help students find eligibility one way or the other. So please feel free to contact us there. Okay, so let's say the student's in, right? They're starting their application now. They already made their account registration and logged in. So here is what the screen looks like when they're starting their application. Press add new application. It's going to ask firstly about your level of study that they're seeking, whether it's undergraduate or graduate. It's usually undergraduate for students, but we do offer graduate as well. It's asking when you first enrolled in undergraduate studies, what school year you're receiving aid for. So we always have this open for 2 academic years. So currently the 24-25 year is still open briefly, and we have 25-26 open as well. Then it's going to ask you some questions about your high school education. It's going to ask you what your status will be when you begin college, and just some great general information. Really easy. Then you scroll down, you're going to see some more. It's going to keep asking about your citizenship status. So it's really important that students select the right answer. Anything that they submit, there's 2 pages when they do the DREAM Act application. So this is page 1, and anything that they submit on this page, they're going to have to be really careful because they cannot change this information until they finish the whole application, and then they have to submit a request to change it. It doesn't take too long. We try and process change requests very quickly. Typically, it's processed in like 2 business days, I'd say. However, we don't want to make students wait. So I would just make sure that they're understanding the questions as they're reading them. And if they have questions about their citizenship status, because we do see that quite often, feel free to reach out to us or just take a deeper look with them before submitting it. A lot of times, students don't even understand their own immigration status because they're so young. They're in high school a lot of times. So just feel free to talk that through with them and make sure you're submitting the right information. Okay, so that was page 1. You click submit, and then it's going to take you to page 2. You're still on the DREAM Act eligibility application on page 2. So now it's just going to ask you about student information. It's going to ask you for the student's first name, last name, their date of birth, and if they've ever been known as any other legal names. Really important to be accurate here as well, because all this information is going to come back up later. And if I typed it in wrong here, it's going to have to be changed later on. So again, watch out for typos. Something we do want to point out here is when students are typing in their first and last name, we encourage students to write their first and last name exactly as it appears on their high school records. For example, a lot of students in this population oftentimes have more than one last name. It can be a cultural thing, you know? So let's say my name is Natasha Torres, and on my high school records, I have Natasha Torres. But let's say on my other documents, like my passport, I have 2 last names, Natasha Torres Gomez, because I have both my parents' last names there. Students should write their name as it appears in the high school records, because we're going to verify their high school eligibility oftentimes with the State Department. And if it's a mismatch, it's just going to delay the process for the student. It's not a big deal. We'll get it resolved. But it's better if they put their name as it appears on the high school records there. And then later, we ask them if their legal documents say something else. And that's where they can indicate that. And that's going to be fine. So just a pointer to help you with students to make sure that this is processed quickly and efficiently. Okay, so now it's going to keep scrolling down. You're still in the DREAM Act eligibility application. You're going to get to the notification center. So as we mentioned, when you first create your DREAM Act account, you put an email address. This is really important to note. Students should use an email address that they will always have access to. So if you're helping a student in a high school setting or even in a college setting, we don't recommend students to use their high school or college emails, because firstly, if they're in high school, they may not have access to that inbox later, or if they're in college, they may transfer and they not have access. Their notifications for all these awards are going to be sent to that inbox. So it's just easier if they use their own private email. But anyway, in the notification section, it says all notifications are going to be sent to, insert the email address used to create the account, and then students can type in their own phone number. We typically don't contact students with their phone number. We send all notifications through email. However, in some circumstances, I have reached out to students by phone. If we have a pressing matter that, let's say, they only have a certain amount of time to fix and they're not answering their emails, I'll oftentimes give them a call to give them a heads up and say, hey, we need to verify your information or something else, right? Always encourage your students to check their emails. Okay, now we're still in the DREAM Act eligibility application. It's not that long, I promise. It's just a lot of questions to get through. So it's going to ask about high school verification. So for most students, we have to verify their high school verification. So they have 2 options here. I'll get into that in one moment. We're also going to, if students choose, I would like to be verified by the New York State Education Department, that is what we recommend. We recommend all students be verified by the New York State Education Department. But if they choose that, they're going to have to insert what high school they attended and their high school student ID if they know it. There's some students who may not be able to choose this high school verification by New York State Education Department. That could be because, one, maybe their high school is not on the list. We know that some private schools or charter schools can't be verified through the state education department. Or sometimes students choose this option and they can't be verified because of a name mismatch, like I said. So sometimes students have like a hyphen in their name and the computer won't pick that up, or they have multiple last names. So sometimes there's just, this isn't an option. And for students who cannot be verified by the state education department, don't worry, there's another option, which we'll look into now. Okay, so what's the backup plan for students who can't be verified by state education department? So students can either opt out themselves manually when they're selecting how would you like to be verified. They can also choose, I would like to upload my high school documentation myself, right? That's another option. So for students who are going to do manual verification and upload their high school documents themselves, they have to upload their transcript, and their transcript has to have their graduation date printed on it, because we're looking here not only for their 2 years and a high school like the DREAM Act requirement states, we also want to show that they graduate from New York State High School. Now we get a lot of questions about this. So a lot of times in high schools, you're helping students apply for the DREAM Act before they actually graduated, which is really great. So their high school transcript isn't going to have the graduation date yet. So what can you do? We recently updated our policy to accept high school transcripts before students graduated. But the thing you have to do to comply with this is we have to type, or you have to type, expected graduation date onto the transcript. So for example, if let's say it's April and you're helping a student apply and they're going to graduate in June, upload their transcript that shows their 2 years of academic eligibility, and then on the top of it, just type on there, expected graduation date, June 2025. That will be accepted. This has to be typed on to the transcript. It cannot be handwritten. Really important to note. Additionally, for students who can't be verified, we will email them. We'll give them an update and say, hey, we couldn't verify with the education department. They can't find you for some reason. Upload your high school transcript. It's going to be the same process for them. They upload this transcript directly to their application, and it's really easy. Okay, now we're getting to the last but not least. We're finally done with the DREAM Act application. You get to the supporting documents section. So this is what I was just kind of talking about. You have to upload supporting documents. Some students do. So this may be uploading a high school transcript if they're getting manual verification, or some students may have to upload their citizenship information. So for example, if you said you were a US citizen whose permanent home is outside of New York, and that's why you're applying for DREAM Act, we're gonna have you upload your birth certificate. Or if you're a TPS holder, maybe we're gonna have you upload your TPS documentation. So right there where it says supporting documentation, it will tell students exactly what they need to upload. So a lot of times they're gonna be confused why their application is not getting processed. We see that oftentimes students are missing the supporting documentation section, so always double check that. If there having an issue with the upload, it's not uploading for some reason or it's getting denied, please email nysdream@applyists.com. You can send the supporting documentation to that email and they will upload it for the students. Yep, there it is in the chat for all of you as well. That's going to be the go-to email for all DREAM Act related questions, okay? And let's say that the student, sometimes we see students uploading a wrong document, like they think they're submitting the right thing, but it's wrong. By sending the email there, they can ask, like, can you let me know if this document's correct? And they'll tell you the exact feedback of why the document's getting rejected. So that's going to be really helpful as well. So don't worry if you can't submit it for some reason, there's your next step. And last but not least, we're going to do a quick overview of the DREAM Act application steps just to make sure we're all on the same page, because we do know it can be really overwhelming. So firstly, you're going to go to our website, hess.ny.gov/dream. You're going to click the apply button. You're going to create that account. Like I said, super easy, just a password, date of birth, an email address. You're going to pick add new application. Students are going to use that path determination that Jeff was mentioning, really important. They're going to say, I'm applying for DREAM Act. And then right from there, it's going to take you directly to the DREAM Act application. Students are going to go through the eligibility application, which we just went through. Next is going to be the really important steps. After the DREAM Act's done, you submit it. It takes about 2 weeks to process, I'd say. You're going to get an email, right? It's going to say, approved, your DREAM Act's approved. After it's approved, students are not done. DREAM Act is not a financial aid application. Once it's accepted, students need to log back into their DREAM Act account, that same website, and they need to click add new application, and they're going to submit their financial aid applications through that account portal. So they're going to do their TAP in there. If they want to apply for Excelsior, it's going to be right in there. Really important that they do it all in this account, not on our HESC website. Yeah, and then last but not least, encourage students to check their emails. Again, if they're missing any documentation, we're going to email them every 14 days and say, your application's missing XYZ. Any issues, we're going to email them. Also for approvals, we're going to email them. Just please encourage your students to check their emails, because we know that sometimes high school students aren't in the habit of doing that. And I'll pass it back over to Jeff.
Was muted again. Real quick, there's a question that came to the chat, Natasha. I want to know if you can help me with it. The question was, if a student was denied the DREAM Act, can they reapply? I'm gonna say the answer is they can either reapply or submit the
Appeal
documentation
decision.
to,
Right.
pardon?
Yeah, maybe they can appeal the decision.
Mhm.
So if a student was denied and you believe that they should have been approved, please email us. You can email us at that nysdream@applyiscs.com. That's fine. And they'll tell you why it was denied. And we can, if you know, and if you believe that there's a misinformation, miscommunication happening, we'll definitely work through that and figure out how we can help that student. So feel free to appeal a decision. Yes.
The second part of that question is that the student reported the wrong income. Now, does the wrong income impact the eligibility for the DREAM Act?
Nope. So you're going to apply for the DREAM Act, and there's nothing about finances in there. It's just the application we've reviewed. And the next part in the DREAM Act, you can apply for TAP. That's where the income is going to be incorrect. And if you need to change anything with the reported income, again, just email at NYSDream and let them know you put the wrong income. And then that may change the decision for TAP itself.
Right. So definitely want to reiterate that. So DREAM Act and alternate pathways are not the actual financial aid applications.
Correct.
They are a key to a door, and there's a bunch of doors in the hallway that all lead to the same room. And they're a key to the door to the same room, right? So when they get in there, then income makes an impact. The income is reported incorrectly, whether it's DREAM Act students or alternate pathway students or FAFSA eligible students. They're able to appeal it to provide documentation to say, hey, actually, this is the actual income, and then go from there. Okay. All right. Great question. Thank you, Brittany. Awesome question that we answered for you. Everybody take a second and breathe real quick, because that's a lot of information. A
That
lot of
was one.
information.
Yep. That was
Okay.
just step one. That's a DREAM Act.
A lot of stuff. So just so you guys are aware, there's some resources available on the FAFSA Ready training page. So the eligibility guide will kind of walk you through exactly what Natasha just went through. It's a PDF document that you can print out, hand to students, have on hand, and send that to students so that they can also go through this eligibility guide as well. There's also a full walkthrough video available on our website where you can go ahead and send it to a student. I've sent it to students all the time. Hey, here's a walkthrough video, and it walks them through the important parts of those applications. Okay. So really, really good stuff. Take a second because I know it's a lot of information. And then we'll move on. We'll move on from here. All right. So now let's talk about the alternative eligibility pathway. This is the new pathway. This is for students who are U.S. citizens, who are New York residents, but their parents or spouse is not a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. So this allows them to apply for New York State aid without submitting a FAFSA. I said it once or twice before, but I really want to reiterate, right? This is obviously a great pathway for some students, but also want you and the students to be aware that although they're applying for New York State aid, this does not allow them to additional funds. Does not allow them to receive federal funds like work study, Pell Grant, FSEOG. All those are federal programs. So if they are looking for those other grants, student loans, they will not be able to attain those without the FAFSA. So the alternate pathway would get them the availability, opportunity to apply for TAP and things like that, but not federal programs. So Natasha already talked about how to get in here. She already talked about the creation of account. We already talked about path determination. So now once we've actually entered into the alternate eligibility application, it's a little bit shorter than the DREAM Act application, which is okay, right? What's going to happen is students will enter their citizenship status and a social security number. Okay, not a work authorization SSN, but their traditional SSN. And then select the level of study and financial aid academic year. So this is also available right now for 24-25, and it's available for 25-26, because these, once again, they're not the actual financial aid applications. These pathways are open for applications all year round. We accept these applications all year, and then once approved, the applications for financial aid like TAP, STEM, and others will open in the portal when the application actually populates for that year. So these are open all year round. The other thing we have to do here is confirm residency. Okay, you got to confirm residency before moving forward. Just like the DREAM Act, once the student passes this first page, they cannot go back. So make sure, I'm sure that people that have helped students on this call have seen a student that came in with the wrong date of birth, because I've seen it. And most of y'all have probably been doing this way longer than I have. I've seen students enter wrong SSNs, wrong date of births, wrong names. Things happen, right? So we see it, we can help them, but they have to understand that there's going to be a delay. So students cannot go back after they enter that first page and hit submit, okay? Now, the rest of the application is entering their personal information, like their name, what, like Natasha said, like their personal high school records is what we asked for. They will have the opportunity to include other legal names later on in this application. Another thing they'll have to include here is their date of birth. The date of birth is going to be pre-populated. So based on what date of birth they use to create their account, that date of birth will be here and will not be editable. So if a student put in the wrong date of birth when they created their account, they will now have to email that email we talked about, nysdream@applyiscs.com, and send in something like a birth certificate or a legal document reflecting the correct date of birth. Then they can change that form, okay? Moving forward, they can enter their other legal names here, the country, and if you notice here, we're asking for country, city, state, and zip code. We are not asking for mailing address, right? A part of the reason why we have this is to protect students. So this is an added layer of protection for students that we don't ask for their actual home address, just a city, state, and zip code. We can apply for notifications. Natasha already covered that pretty extensively, so I won't go over that again. And then the grade level. Will they have a bachelor's degree when that school year begins? For most of your students, it's going to be no. The last part about the eligibility application is to upload any documents that are needed. Just like the DREAM Act, there may be documents needed like a birth certificate or things like that. They can upload those documents. Now, these applications will not process until all documents have been received. So we gotta get all the things first before we actually process it. We do send emails every 14 days saying, hey, listen, you have an application on file, we're missing these documents, please send them in. We do continuously send students information and requests for information. It may go to spam, so make sure they're checking their spam folders as well. And then they have to submit to sign the document, and submit the signature. Applications can take up to 2 weeks. And just a quick summary, my part was a lot shorter than Natasha's, but because she's the guru, that's why she gets the harder parts. Apply for alternate eligibility pathway, such a path determination statement. Apply for eligibility, get your acceptance. Once you're doing that, now you're going into apply for TAP, STEM, and other grants and scholarships. Check your email, check your email, check your email. A quick caveat, just to throw this in there, students that are applying for these pathways, right? Natasha has provided we'll give some other information, but Natasha's provided the email address. So I've seen students that have made call center requests, right? So they make a point with the call center to say, hey, my DREAM Act application is messed up. The call center cannot see these applications. The call centers cannot interact with these applications. So they must go through the NYS Dream, all right? They must go through that email to coordinate with that application and make those corrections. They cannot go through our call center until much later in this process, okay? So just make sure students know that. I know sometimes our call center tries to help, but they can't see where your students may need the most help. So let's go over these scenarios, and now it's your turn to actually answer them. All right. So I know Brittany was answering some of those in the chat before. So now's the time to sign, Brittany. Get it back in here. Right. So we're gonna go through the scenarios, and using the information that we have given you already, let's see if we can answer these correctly. All right. So here we go. Scenario 1. Jared moved to New York 3 years ago from California, attended high school for 3 years at Xaverian in Brooklyn. I think it's still in Brooklyn. I'm not sure if I made this up. Is it Brooklyn or Queens? I don't know. But Jared's parents both work in Brooklyn and are U.S. citizens. It's in Brooklyn. All right, bet. Thank you, Dana. I played them in high school years ago. So which application should Jared fill out? moved to New York 3 years ago, attended high school in Brooklyn. He's a citizen, parents are citizens. What application should Jared fill out? Let's see it in the chat. Right, we got one. What else we got? All right, there we go. Thanks, Pamela. Good job, Kate. All right. There we go. All right. So the FAFSA TAP pathway works for the student, right? They're able to apply for FAFSA. They have New York State residency, so they can apply for TAP. This student can apply to that FAFSA TAP pathway. Good job, everybody. I think they're supposed to do something. Is this do something? No, is it not doing a thing? All right. Next scenario. Go ahead, Tasha.
Okay, great job, everyone. Let's review scenario 2 again. So Brittany is a New York resident who was born and raised here. Her parents recently decided to move to North Carolina after she graduated from high school to take care of an elderly parent. Both her parents are citizens. Which application should Brittany consider filling out? Let me know what your thoughts are, everyone. This one's a little tricky. Feel free to type it in the chat. What you think? Dream? Okay, nice. Anyone else? Okay, let's go forward.
I think they're thinking. They're thinking right now.
Thinking?
We might have stumped them. I don't know.
FAFSA dream. Oh, nice.
Oh, okay, Pamela.
Yeah.
Finger snaps for Pamela. Finger snaps.
Yeah. You guys are correct. It is the DREAM Act application. So because her parents moved outside of New York State, she may not be a New York State resident anymore, so she can still apply for the DREAM Act since she went to high school in New York State. Really extra props to Pamela too, because this is proof that some DREAM Act recipients can still apply for FAFSA. So she can do FAFSA and DREAM Act in this case. Some students can only do DREAM Act, but Brittany can do both. Nice job.
All right, number 3, my man Rocco. Rocco was born and raised in New York, graduated from high school a few years ago, and decided to work for a few years to figure out what he wanted to do. During that time, he got married. Rocco had to begin attending college to pursue a degree in elementary education. He is a U.S. citizen, but his spouse is not. What application should Rocco fill out? What do y'all think? I haven't heard from a couple of y'all yet. I'm waiting to hear from some of y'all. I haven't heard from Brittany in a minute. Or read from Brittany. I guess it's not heard, it's read. All right, they're rolling in, rolling in. Thank you, Dana. Elizabeth, thank you. Sam, thank you. This would be your first alternate eligibility application student, right? So can Rocco fill out the FAFSA? Yes, right, Pamela. They absolutely could fill out the FAFSA. He could go out and do so. This is Rocco's choice, right? Between him and his spouse, what does he want to do? The alternate eligibility and receive just New York State aid, or the FAFSA and receive state aid and federal aid, right? So once again, this is a decision for every family to make on their own as to what's best for them.
Okay, last but not least, scenario 4. Petro arrived in New York last year. He's a Ukrainian citizen who had to leave home due to the war. He's now in the United States and has temporary protected status and has a work authorization SSN. So which application is right for Petro? What do you guys think? Let us know in the chat. Dream. All right, guys. Anyone else? DREAM Act. Okay, great. You're correct. TPS, temporary protected status, is eligible for DREAM Act. Okay, I'm happy that it seems like everyone has a great understanding now of the different application access pathways. Okay, so now we're going to get into a little bit of a juicier part of the presentation, the TAP application for DREAM recipients and alternate pathway recipients. Let's get into it. Okay, so firstly, Students have already applied for DREAM Act or alternate eligibility and they were approved. Their next step is to log into that portal again of their account and click add new application. And they're going to click the tab. So when they get to the tab application, the student information section is pre-populated. You see here, the name is already there. The address is already there. That's why we have to be really careful that all your information was correct in the first application because it transfers directly over. If students need to change their permanent mailing address, we do give them an option to do it right there. Anything else that they need to change, again, email us nysdream@apply.ists.com. We do give students a chance to type in a new phone number as well, if they'd like. Next, students need to select their college. They need to report their college information. This is super important because we report the award amount to the college. So if a student's still in high school and they're not sure which college they're attending, they can either leave this blank or put something temporary for now. But later, once the student knows which college they're going to, and when the student knows their student ID, it's going to be imperative that they come back to the application and update it. If they have an incorrect student ID or an incorrect college, their colleges will never see their award money, and they're going to be wondering why they don't have any financial aid. So remind students to come back to us if they're not sure yet. Again, email nysdream@apply.ists.com to make any changes. All right, so after the little introduction of the TAP application, now it's going to get into some more detailed information. We need to figure out the student dependency status. If a student is dependent or independent and what can affect their award amount and their processing. So this is going to be really important for us to focus on. So the first question in this section says, at any age since you turned 13, were you an orphan, a ward of the court, in foster care, or none of the above? So students can make their selection here. If they indicate they're in foster care or some other status, at the end, they're going to have to upload documentation to prove that. And if not, they can click none of the above and keep going. Next, we get to some more questions. It's going to ask if they were in the military and honorably discharged. Again, that comes to supporting documentation. And then finally, we get into some more specific questions. This is going to be the really important question we should all focus on. Now it says, what was or will be the applicant's dependency status for the tax years 24 or 25? Select which is true for you. So it says, I lived with a parent or step-parent for more than 6 weeks. I received more than $750 from a parent or step-parent. I was claimed as a dependent, or none of the above. If a student chooses any of those three options, they're going to be marked as a dependent. If they click none of the above, they're going on the independent route, and they're going to have to answer some follow-up questions so we can really determine if they're truly independent or not. Okay, so if a student chose none of the above, here's some follow-up questions that they're going to have to answer. It says, did you or will you have any dependents? If they say yes, that may qualify them for an independent. That can be their check mark that they're good to go. If they say no, got to keep going. It asks you your age. If you're under 22, again, you're not going to be verified as independent. We have to ask you some more questions. If you're over 22, you're good to go. We'll approve you for independent. I'll also ask about your marital status. Same thing. If you're single, we can't fully determine your independency. If you're married, good, you're independent. So if they answered like yes to any of these, they're going to be good to go on the independent route. If they chose no, they're going to have some more questions to keep trying to verify if they're truly independent or not. So here's the last follow-up question. This is the last chance for a student to prove they're independent. And all students who are under 22 must meet this qualification. It's just the way that the law works. So it says, which describes your dependency status on June 30th, 2025. So they can say both of my parents were totally and permanently disabled. Both of my parents were declared incompetent. My family is dissolved and my parents are no longer responsible for my care, or I received or will be receiving public assistance. Notice how there's no none of the above option here. Sometimes students get to this question and they say none of these apply to me, but there's no none of the above option. What do I do? If none of these apply to the student, they have to go back earlier in their application and edit that first question about dependency, about if they live with their parents or something, or they're receiving assistance from their parents, because there's a discrepancy going on. If they can't answer one of these options, then they may not be truly independent. If you believe the student has a special circumstance, please feel free to email us and we'll work with you to determine the student's independency and figure out how to answer these questions in a way that truly reflects their situation. If they choose any of these options, such as my family is dissolved and no longer responsible for my care, or anything else, we are going to request supporting documentation at the end of this application to just confirm that's true. If there's any questions about dependency, please put them in the chat and we can work through that. Okay, after you get to the dependency section, we're going to get to reporting parent income. Of course, this is for dependent students. Independent students don't need to report their parents' income. So it's going to ask, for some students, they may have to say if their parents filed taxes or not. If they did, this is really important if you're helping a student. I always think it's best to have them bring in a copy of the taxes or have a picture of it, because students don't fully understand sometimes how to read the taxes and report it here. And that can cause an issue when we're trying to verify their income with Department of Tax and Finance. So make sure they're choosing the right tax status. If they're single or unmarried or head of household, that small decision here can affect the processing of their application. Same thing, and if they're filing outside of New York State, sometimes students only file federal taxes and not state taxes. Again, that's going to be really important to indicate here. We verify this against New York State Department of Tax and Finance. So anything that's not New York State, we need to know that, because we're not going to find a tax match, and that's going to impact processing. So make sure students are reading that correctly, okay? And same thing, they're just going to enter the SSN and their parents' first and last name. Again, make sure the last name's correct. Sometimes there's hyphen things. Sometimes parents have two last names, one last name. Just make sure it's all correct there. It's going to help the student get processed quickly. Okay, now we go to reporting student income. All students go to this section. So we will ask if students file taxes or not. If they did, they can indicate that. If they didn't file taxes, they can also indicate that as well. Again, just make sure that everything's correct there to New York State taxes and all their choices are correct. Okay, now I'm going to pass it over to Jeff to take us through the rest of the TAP application.
Yes. All right. So we'll talk about pension income, something that most students don't understand or don't understand completely, and some financial don't understand completely, is that some untaxed income is also used in the award calculation for financial aid. So we ask students about pension income here. If their parents or custodial parents or whoever's receiving any pension income, they should indicate that. Also knowing that we will run this through tax and finance. So we do have students that think they're putting the right information in, and then there's an additional $10,000, $20,000, $5,000 that appears through an IRA distribution, a pension, things like that. So we try to calculate that ahead of time using this question, and sometimes that falls through the cracks, but we do get it when we verify through tax and finance. Okay, so all that is used for income calculation. I'm sure if you guys have been in this for quite some time, especially after COVID, that I think 2023 year was wild, because there was a bunch of students that got that, and parents that got that unemployment compensation, and that pushed them over the edge for what was TAP. And now they're back into the program, but they missed a year of it because that unemployment compensation may have pushed them just over the edge of the income. Then we get to other family members in college. Okay, so there is a slight increase in aid for students that have multiple family members in college at the same time. It's not huge, but it's a little bump, right? Something nice. Any extra money is a little good. So those students can enter their family members in college. Once again, when it comes to this, we always make sure students are answering their emails, because there's a lot of times where students indicate this, and then for some reason we cannot verify them through the clearinghouse. So then we have to send documentation to the student. We usually send it around October, November, to say, hey, we couldn't find that family member in college. Can you, make sure that they're in college? Send us their information, have them sign this document, send it back to us. We call that VIAC letters. When we get those VIAC letters back, we input them. If we can't find the student again, we'll reach out again via email and say, hey, listen, couldn't find them. Have them send their transcript to prove full-time status, and they will do it that way. We do get students that call sometimes saying, hey, my award went down a little bit. What happened? And we find out that they did not verify their other family member in college, right? So make sure they're doing those and following and listening to their emails. And then supporting documentation. Anything that's required will be listed. As you see here, there is an ask for the tax returns, but it's not required. So this application will process without the tax return. But if there is a required document, make sure they're following those guidelines. We have, especially if you're working with students, good question, Kate. So I'm just gonna go back to this question about linking the our TAP application to the IRS, or to not the IRS, but to the Department of Tax and Finance. It is like that, but it's not. Like, it's already a verifiable thing. They have to put it in, and what that does is it automatically gives them estimated award when the TAP application processes. So they can get an estimated award from that. Right now, we don't have the capability to just do it instantly, but who knows? In the future, that would be good. That would be better for us too. That'd be a win-win. So great question on that, Kate. When I'm talking about documents here, this is something where we see a lot of students make a mistake. And it's not always their fault. We love technology, but we don't always understand technology. So the accepted file formats, and this is for all uploads. So if you hang out and deal with students that are filling out the other TAP application, filling out FAFSA, or any of our grants and scholarships, whenever they upload documentation, we ask as a PDF, TIF, PNG, GIF. Those are the acceptable file formats. Raise your hand if you have an iPhone. Raise your hand, or give me a thumbs up if you have an iPhone. I guarantee about half of y'all have iPhones. I got at least one. Yep. If you have an Android, put a thumbs down. Android, thumbs down. No Androids here. But iPhones, when they take pictures in what's called HEIC files. HEIC files are not acceptable to our upload system. So a lot of times students will take pictures on their iPhone or on their iPad and then try to upload it to us. And then when they call and say, hey, we sent you this document, and we're like, we don't have it, it's because it wasn't put in the right file format. So please make sure, especially if the students are using their phones or iPads to do this uploads, that it's in the right file format. I also just tell students, hey, just use a laptop, use a computer. Colleges have computers, high schools have computers. Try to use those mediums to get that up and running, right? Just a quick tidbit. Now, the last thing is signing the application. They want to sign the application. They can e-sign or paper sign, right? So they can download a paper signature page, sign that and send it in, or do it via e-signature using the DMV, okay? DMV sometimes doesn't work. If the DMV doesn't work, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Just go down, hit download and sign instead, and then it'll still populate you that paper signature page that you can they can print out, sign, and then send back to us through the uploads or through here. Okay. Now, if there are any changes that need to be made, corrections, Natasha already kind of mentioned it. Here it is. We also have a document. So if the student's like, I don't know what you're talking about, I don't know what do I put in the email. There's a document on FAFSA Ready Training that tells you exactly what document needs to be mailed, what needs to be in there, how it should look, what information needs to be on there. So please look for that document on our FAFSA Ready Training page. All right. Let's see here. Speaking of FAFSA Ready Training, if you haven't been a part of it, get to it. I'm actually gonna take a second here real quick and just show it to you guys, if you guys that haven't seen it before, because I feel like some people haven't seen it and don't really know what it has to offer to them. Okay. So let me stop sharing that. I'm gonna do a new share real quick just to show you guys what is on this FAFSA Ready Training page. But that's not it. That's ed law. I don't want that. All right, so FAFSA Ready Training page. Ed law is there too. So these are our 5 modules on the FAFSA Ready Training page. You can locate this by clicking on the for academic partners, high school counselors, and then FAFSA Ready Training. There's 5 modules that we update periodically throughout the year. especially high volume times like in October when the new FAFSA rolls out. Even now, they're already making some changes and suggestions for FAFSA. So as we get that new information, we update this training. So for this training module, it's alternate eligibility pathways. We click this and it opens up our seminar. So this seminar video will be here by the end of the week, as well as the presentation will be here by the end of the week, where you can send it to your colleagues and review any information that we talked about in this presentation. There's also resources here. Each one of these is a downloadable PDF that you can send to students that you can have on hand to help students out. There's a bunch of resources here that you can print out and send out to students, okay? And then there's some video tutorials that are coming, and then FAQs. So this should be your first stop. If there's ever a question about what a student can or can't do, what's wrong with an application, this should be your first stop to see if somebody's asked that question already, and if there's an answer to it here, especially when it comes to the alternate eligibility pathway. We do have some extra questions here around Excelsior eligibility. Can they change their mind? Can they still fill out a FAFSA after the alternate pathway? All that is already on here, answered for you guys. Okay, so this is a quick snippet of the Dream Act eligibility application, the guides that are available. So this is one of the guides. So this takes them through the Dream Act eligibility application. Everything we talked about is in this little PDF document to help them understand those questions a little bit better, all right? So let's open up to any questions that you have for us that we haven't answered already. We'd love to answer them for you. Let us know if there's any questions here.
While everyone's thinking of questions as well, I'm just going to drop another link in the chat. Each month, I host a Dream Act / alternate pathway support session. All the dates are in the link I just dropped. There's no registration required. Students can pop in anytime throughout the event, and they're going to get one-on-one help with their applications. So they're going to have to stay in the waiting room until a representative becomes available. We do this in a private setting so that students can discuss sensitive information in their application in a safe and secure setting. So no need to worry about talking about their immigration status, social security numbers. We're all going to be one-on-one.
Yeah, and make sure to follow us on social media. We have a lot of content coming out about opening and closing of programs, and little FAQs that we have sent out and that we kind of try to answer, things like that. So I would say this. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I'm gonna stop the recording.